نوقعلو بتساينس كالسنا حونا متكو هذا قلنا نيو تقدميت بروجرامنا مسنا متكو presentation ياو مهرون قسم لا اتخون للا متكو researcher of social science سيو anthropology political sociology history film legal studies لصنع سويو دعم متكوليت بلطو تخونخم مقاله يونيفرسيتي اب قلامينو اب SOS بزحات قلعت لفري ايو exemplary لهونه سويل بزحات لايلو حاوسو اب تاريخ بزح سلطات للو اغايزنينت horizontally سلسته ربعه عينت ديجريتات لحازه including law depth na knowledge هنا حد كحز الجمره including anthropology حاونا ايو لما انتي بزعبا social movements خجلسنا ايو قلنا لله نشتي من باب لاكل بروفايل قد من جمارنا his long term research is in social anthropology and cultural history and he contributes to his current multidisciplinary research approach to history and politics anthropologically مالتي among cultural and social groups in the whole Ethiopia and Eritrea in particular this study او ورنيو Ethiopia Eritrea تستوستهم نويح لغونا study غير نيرو اب نايكونا مازملكت نس بي اتش دي ونستح حازه او ي ارتكل ونصحفو نيرو تغحات.com ناي كنا ما بلايت او تغراي جينوسايد الملكت دم بيصبو منشمو اتراكت الجبره بزحات تنشن اتراكت الجبره سو او سوشيال انثروبولوجي بزحات استواصو الجبره ايو حاونا متكو associate professor يا مقالة يونيفرسيتي حزه الساعات زي School of Advanced Studies in Social Sciences باريس يولله مصنعت لله جبره فيلو يو School of Oriental Studies أو لندن أو يونيفرسيتي لندن محزي أو بلانك ماكس بلانك يونيفرسيتي PhD الناس معني يو مالتي. So without further ado I will give you to متكو please go ahead take the stage عندي غني لنا خوير خلنا سير مسخه كنا مهاركا واخا كنحتت we look forward to it
غني لي لاك نقول لغاتهم قاعد حنا مساهم في اللي غني لي invitation له screen share كيريدي يعني let me share it اسمع الراديو لاك مالتنا هيدو connection is sorry وانا وفلاكتويتي قبل له يجن تقدمتها لي تنقرني قال لي يغني لنا لاك مش لاك نفلتينا وزح جزي تما هسال هنا تطلع لنا ونواجنا يرنا هنا مست سوشيال ساينس تحيزو مغلنا علينا مالتي ስለዚህ I think خمدي حنت موتيفات نيروبي متقدمون كان initiative وسيطخ محورة بايقلتات بمقل على وقع جن بزح ينورنا I think خمدي حنت initiativeات صبغات يوم كلي دالي to presentation more or less نشتغل بتاعمي so إذا هم حسابيك social science قوينو كن specifically أو anthropology نا sociology منا وتمس political sociology تدحيزو تعيلو له بزعبا محور سب نغنى كي ويم دمات عينا خمولو نخيل social movements بفلاي أو تحدي جميلوس خميك مسخلت لوتي تقول أو anthropology دلو تيوريتات هاد دخلت تيوريتات وسيستي ديسكس كبر مالتنا detail دي خوني قال يجزيل النغرات هالي تماتير هلا شير نقار نخلينا فلاي after تيوريتات مالتي نازي حزيز اللغة presentation more or less general موزحتي anthropologistat تسمع مقول النغرات محور سلوت خمي نسي تأيوم تمسرت هاوي بيلارات أولي يشتغل إلى حساب المهاوي I think موزحتهم يا understand قروهم common knowledge موزحتيو كن من الله محور سنة بتهزنا للو صقم من فلات كن توصلنا كحكسوكم يخيلي لي بالحساب لأنني pure لخوانا خمنا research presentation غيرهم خيط وستو الناولهم حصلوا على تياترون تن زيني تن حدا تن presentationات لله I think مزحتي I will use English if you don't mind. أفتح حدا لما بتقريان قرآن خلينا عملتي. So these are the topics that I want to discuss. مساحتهم عملتي. نفلي بعيني social science كتير له cultural and social anthropology. What do people think about culture كتير له after layman assumption. شو الخاتم نعورو قال ملا نيو. At a higher level after theory after العلم تنقتلنا جن it's a way of life. It's how we think. أحساس عملتي. Simplifies للخون you to نعورو بل على حاجة لما at a higher level it's actually how do people think. It is a structure of thinking. سويلارينا culture مالت سوينا. I will try to discuss what social movements and how social movements are acquired, and then social change. Like contemporary social change by anthropology, I understand the government. Case at law, and then we look at that, and then I will talk about identities because it's highly related to who you are, and then what other calls you, how you identify by identity, not identification, and then targets of change. I am learning how and why do things change. After I will talk about the challenge that I behind Tigray. تعالوا محورة cultural أمينا target المالتي. So first, what are social movements for us, for anthropology? So also for any social scientist, I think they are at the heart of society design. Social movements are at the core of every change. Historians, political scientists, but the way we look at them, it's not as if they happen fresh. We look at them as a natural phenomenon. Of course, the intensity and the quality of the movements differ. Intensity and quality, it depends on the environment. Environment, not the leadership. most ነገራት ኮንያ ማለት ነው ስለዚህ anthropologists መውዛህቲኦም anthropologists አለዝነውም ነገራት it is social movements whether it's feeding habits or traditional medicine or parliaments whatever it's always about movements and change society change ይገብሩ ይላይና assume كيرنا الحال ማለት ነው زي حلف خلت عمد خمين خلتميت عمد قالوا لنا ورد حسابي لله recently again people are shifting towards political anthropology how do society organize themselves survival in anthropology ማለት we study culture and culture is the complex whole complex لሆነ it includes everything medicine ጀምርኩም እስከ everything ሁሉ ሰብ ያብለው ቦታ ሙሉ ይግበር ነገር ሙሉ under anthropology መስነውና recently in 1980s 90s we have a very important contribution after political anthropology. It's one of the subdisciplines and now has discussed it is emerging concepts since 1980s that must identity how do people especially so-called minorities really come up a minority right on acquire so in the 80s and 90s it was more of like a civil societies but of course when you think of civil society it's almost like synonymous with the democracy with the global governance that has it somehow diffused weak assumption especially vis-a-vis the contribution to the people these days why because it's part of the global governance diffused coins of the global governance and it's already part of the international law but it is not beneficiary to everyone at a higher level of law are we causing a goal law institutions or cultural groups benefit what has civil society so it's important to go back in history civil movements it's important to go pre-1980s. قدمي النورس تحساسات لفتم revolutionat لفتم freedom fighters تغيرنا we have a lot of thinking has again more or less mature geru somehow synonymous with global governance 1980s we can talk about rights-based movements ክንልዕል ንኽእል ኢና ብዙሓት እንትናት ኣለዉ and also we can talk about identity and identification collective identity ማለት እዩ ናይ ኩሉ ሰብ ለማእኸለ ማለት እዩ collective identity it's an identity that's shared among all ግን who are these collectives collective ንብሎም መን እዮም ብዓይኒ ትግራይ ተሊና ተጋሩ ንብለና ወዶ who are they there are multiple voices so we need to understand who are these and what are their ta'ilallom power ta'ilallom tahsaswa how are they represented in the entire journey so مسواد كاين نون كريان خلينا of course these days في life حرنا يا أمريكا مستعمرة للو سجم أي مساجن people are also trying to rethink about identity you know there is an emerging hostilities new hostilities but also there are also old problems coming again so we need to think in terms of old problems but also new problems that are not expected Mr. culture تدحيزو أساسي والمسي so we anthropology studies زينا مزحتي زينا political anthropologists زي خم background مسولهو what is culture I think it's important culture تمتلنا it's the whole complex whole psychic unity اللي نعمل history sub psychic مزحتي human beings there is a psychic unity people are the same in assume more but there are also hierarchy of thinking hierarchy thinking of course مستناي قدم Darwinian التحساس وقال تدحيز المزن ديو
do you mind if you make it presentation mode
it's not
slides it's on edit mode
okay
yeah.
sorry so we can so when we look at culture زي كل ነገር ይልሐውስ ማለት እዩ ሰባት culture ተለው አፍትልላ አፍትገለጥራይ አው ክንወስ ክንኸለለና ሽዑይና ተናይ culture contribution ና ማህበረሰብ contribution ታሪክና ገለና ብሎ ነገር አለ ወደ ሽዑ it's everything ኮንትሮል it also becomes very difficult to understand who are we ተለራ ተጋሩ አክሱም ተገለመለገለ ይባል ወደ we need to really strategize and actually go to the core. What is it? That's where we have a lot of anthropological theories that can help us sum up knowledge. Complex whole in Nayo, it's psychic unity of every human being. Again, there are uniqueness. And what is the uniqueness of Tigrayans? Tigrayans feel it is how we think about problems. Naana problem nulom style. So we can think, from Ethiopian Galatat Nahasu Oregon, Samtagaru, how are we different from the rest? How are we different from the other group? It is in the culture. It is not in the political statement, it's not in the political parties, it's not in the religion, it's somehow in the minds, in the psychic structure of the Tigrayans. أفتقر له التحساس بعد culture نولوجن مزحتيو نايلوم التحساس فايلو shortcut I will talk about it culture as a knowledge no وقت لنا مالتيو so we need to specifically surgical هون التحساس خلاتنا معارض بلتلا هون majority خمتقر الناس نحصلوا منينا له النجار we need to think about it uniqueness is very important in society كل سمع على ناجن what is the difference between English people and Tagaru it is in the mind, it's in the psychic network and how we think. So let's see culture as a function, we will talk about it as well. As a system, function one. So you can think how the British think versus how the French think. France, they think in terms of system, in terms of bureaucracy, in terms of building structure, and then the British, they think in terms of what actually passes through the structure. Because you think of ITPLF and ITPLF political party. So you have to buy to system, it's just the structure. But then what passes through it, the content, that's the function. Sweet function. You have another culture. So it's the interplay between what you actually build and then what actually is being produced. You have a society that is self-sustaining society. So these structural and functionalist anthropological theories are very important. Of colonial as of course have to post-colonialist we have other theories, but these are important theories that are relevant now. And sometimes we have to go back, unfortunately. I had example no واقع محسابات قدم mature خوينهم كسروا الجبوا ما تحساسات اللون. نموذج حتى يزمنا حزن حسوا حساب 16th century 17th century النبرة تحساسات للخونة. We have to use the shortcut هنا to make the نعمل. So these are important things. Then I will talk about social change. خلطنا قراتين more. I think this will probably make things clear. When I say structure, social knowledge, the connection, the interconnection between people, it's like the software. But then you have the culture. The culture is the content. Themselves, you have a website, but then what passes through the website? The meaning, that is the culture part. So in a culture, system again, it becomes a culture as well, a subculture. I don't know if this makes sense. So society networking. To network بعلو من مسمن يزارب. من يهزو مسمن يهزو يقانا. I'll give you an example. Take church. The church is بيتك نتوسعه. كولا على بيتك نتجمر استوى تحتي structure. That is the society. The network management. That itself is knowledge. But then what are the messages? What do they actually talk? What do they actually do? That is the cultural part. In tandem the process, so that you have a highly efficient society. I'm not going to say perfect society, but efficiency, Mr. Society, Mr. Network, and Mr. Cultural. What Mr. So it's social and now the cultural aspect equilibrium then you will not have a surprise. We had a surprise. We're surprised. Everybody's surprised, not just us. The social change, or in fact, the social change system political federalism but did it actually brought any change in the culture? Content so later and then you will have a lot of problem. If you look at the French Revolution or the 1970 Revolution in France, in Russia, even the American Revolution or the British Revolution, sustainable it is because it's society to network and not to culture. So our needs, my needs or my plans should be very consistent with what I actually get out of it. So we have so many cases why revolutions fail, why attempts fail. So you have surprise, but it doesn't mean that sometimes we have successful revolutions. We have so many cases. Ethiopia Revolution, pre-1990, MSA. We assumed that what the change that was brought in 1990 is good. Naturally, it's good. Logically, it's good. Psychic you, Mr. Are we in the same cultural network, cultural thinking? To function, that is how we need to think. While out Tigray, there are some differences. I will talk about them, about these differences, but we need to think a state of growth malady. Okay, I'm sorry, evolution is more or less useless. It's very relevant still, maturity evolution of thinking is very important. Surprisingly, evolution of biological attitude, it's one of the core theories in anthropology as well. So I will simply conclude the idea of culture and then how culture is related to social change by saying that culture is just your experience, our actions. Action na experience na, and then how we interpret it. EU culture. Because it is so complex culture. This is the easiest way. The easiest way to talk about it is just by giving you habitual actions. Otherwise, habitual actions are not culture. We have habits, we have norms, we have tradition, we have culture. At a higher level, you know, the culture. It is our psychic, who we are. Look at the ሃይማኖት ለለው ወይም ደግሞ at the highest level of political theories, ideologies, somium culture ማለት way of life now. ስለዚህ at a higher level, when you design a project or programs or movements, civil societies, it should feed into that higher goal. Now, social structure, they are the forms. It's like the networks. How do you achieve that? So you have the content, and then you need to put that content into a structure, into a box, into a frame. I want a frame. That's what we need to think. Tagaru. What is our frame? History cannot be a frame. History, Tariq, frame khona yikheli. It only becomes supportive. It only gives you the idea that it is possible. Lesson traina ka almost all the knowledge. So the social structure is a form, then action takes on, but then it also becomes part of culture. Hazlan, I had the example called structure, it's very good. That is an asset. That is something that we Tigrayans need to pay attention. Again, what passes through that is limited. Thinking limiting you. It served only very specific purpose. It served only a political entity. It doesn't serve culture, which is existence. Existential question address the brain. It was simply a mediating problems, mediate migrants. So that's how we need to think. And then, of course, social change process you, and we need to think in terms of process. But I think this process itself is not something that we can simply for granted. They need to be proper ideology, and of course, people need to be ready for it. Popular attitude chronology change themselves. How do you popularize the idea, Malachi? When I say popular attitude is culture, Malachi, I'm just trying to bring it into a political, into a social consciousness or into political sociology. Popular attitude in Angolo. Popular tagernayo, which means people understand it, Malachi. You make it fashionable, and then people buy it. Then in highly telehone, people need to be educated so that they buy these social values. It's the same like religion. Religion, I'm religious as well. Don't be disappointed again or offended, but religion is the highest and the most perfect form of governance. We have a branch of anthropology called religious anthropology. It looks into governance at the highest form, belief system, again, complete submersion of systemology. So a lot of politicians, great politicians, for good or worse, take a lot of lessons from religion. Now a popular attitude, popularize and thought culture, it has to function, but also it has to have a structure. As the introduction to go towards social change, or if there is any kind of idea that people want to popularize, we need to think in terms of function. Why? What does it serve? What does it serve? Ultimate goal to humanity. This is from Malinowski, a very well-known anthropologist who wrote a lot about left East Asia, Indonesia, that huge contribution. It's one of the best anthropologists, and he actually advised a lot of colonists. So it's very important to think in terms of function, but then also in terms of structure. How do you achieve that structure? Inevitably, change is inevitable. They are regularly changing. Sometimes progressive view, sometimes depreciating. So we need to audit that. How do you audit a culture or a thinking that is depreciating and a culture that is actually progressing? The only way you can actually audit is by looking at the structure and the function of it. Quality of life, the economic metrics, is simply a detailed, it's like a action plan, audit. At a higher level, we need to think in terms of inevitable normality, and it's also continuous progress, degenerate with the brain. And it also stop at all humanity. Why change? I think this is also a very important thing. Why change, and then how is it related to collective identity? I mean, what changed? Sorry. Civil society individual, especially of the slides. Again, I want to talk in terms of collective identity. I think change sometimes comes primordial. Identity anthropology primordial identity primordial. Unchangeable. So these are very common. No, it changes. It's just a question of socio-cultural, political, and ideological factors. Especially in the 1970s, identity primordial. Ethnicity. These two are very controversial, but the second one, primordial, the first one, primordial, more or less weakened. Everything changed. That's what history is telling us. Everything changed, but it's important that why it changed. Or the most important part is we need to understand why people identify with different things. It's always about motives. People look at their cost and benefits, calculating a reason. Culturally, I'm just talking about people like the Kunama or the Nuer in South Sudan, or the Balinese in Southeast Asia. Every people, they look up into their own advantage. Society. It's just some societies are so weak, and then they just simply strategize weak strategy. So I think that the identity change, it's very common, very, very important. I want you to think in terms of anthropology, identity, latest thinking. You have frames, you have categories, and you have alignments. Then frames, it is like a big container of a concept. Within it, you have subsets like categories. So religion could be one, or citizenship is a frame. Another example, citizenship framing. And then you have also categories within citizenship. You have, American, galamala, that's the category. And then you have alignments. Alignments, how categories, different citizenship or different frames fight and why they change. The most important part that we need to focus about is alignments. Why people have had a frame is a some people change religion, no? People change political ideology. Why do they change? It is in the alignments section of the alignment section discussed. The first concept that I want to talk about is STIL, has like anthropology, culture, and will tell I'm vague and you. I think this will make sense for a lot of you because it's not science. Leslie White is one of the most important post-evolutionist theoreticians. And I think it's very relevant. In society, very relevant. The culture, it's a product of our product. The most important part again, energy. Energy harness like our society, it's doomed to fail. ስለዚህ አርባዕተ ነገራት የካትት will change or culture by itself is change. እና መጀመሪያ sentimental ማለት feeling ማለት it's just that affectionate part of the human ናሰባት ትግራዋይነት ገለመለ ስደርፍ ገለታቱን ጉዳይ and then you have the technological aspect. Technological is the tool, the production of tools. Whatever you think, it is what kind of tools we use. Tools are the most important part of human culture. So in and then the sociological part, the network. Sociological part is how do people talk to each other? How do people communicate information? That is a social network. The last part is the ideological part. Why do they think they exist? Common goal and common cause. Existential trait. Majority is ideologically low. Why are we in this situation? And then how do we get out of it? So these are the four things that affects the kind of culture that really supports the existence or non-existence of that culture group. And then technology multiplied by energy gives you culture. And then of course, evolutionist precisely you are, hierarchy negative intent. It makes sense. Like classical anthropologists, they used all this stuff. I think it's still relevant. Extremely I think this is still with natural process. You might not need this. Maybe we need to think in terms of identification. Identity. Why are you saying I am Tigrayan? We need to have an idea about why. There is a process of activation. Activate the completely dormant. So let's see cost-benefit analysis. To frame categories and alignments, it's very important. Especially when you want to analyze political parties or why this political party failed or not that, then we need to think in terms of categories. Normally, categories from two different frames should not fight. Religion and ethnicity should not fight in logic. If they fight, there is something wrong or motive or it's something unnatural. So then reference to one of the I think it's you can read and somehow understand. Especially after political party. There are so many things, conflict law. It's important to read about categories and frames. Of course, as in my classical sociology, can we design change? Anthropological, yes, it's possible. There should be fertile ground. Classical case at inequality, exploitation, they are case studies. So it's possible to introduce change. Again, it also depends on the people, that's class leadership and succession management. Leadership and succession is very, very crucial. Of course, of Adam to sacred leaders, the head of states, you have all this change of levels. These are extremely important for change. Fertile ground, and it needs to be checked. I think challenges of Tigray had social value, structure and function. How do we put that into perspective? Are we being carried away nostalgic لخونة أساسا? It needs to be audited. Irrelevant لخونة بزحت أساسا تغلون. Because we have bypassed them. Bypassed them. They are maybe a little bit dormant لخونة أساسا تغلون. To dingus talena no so matahasasat hello social values. Why do I exist? How do I exist? Family element partner, they are crucial for existence. They need to be reactivated knowledge. Khali knowledge now to structure and function of it's a bit disrupted for so many reasons. It's extremely disrupted. In fact, Ethiopia Tigray Bahali when anthropological sociological اعتصامي ولا it's not even 10%. Compare it with the Oromo or the Amhara or the southern nationalities. يلي of course كافت historiography المسألة جميل. The North عويلي history لو يقرأ التعالي. It's very deceiving. ماني نحن على النجار هذه cannot get any تصحف نجارية تروحوا إلى anthropology. حموش تشديش تعين تراي. But look at on the Oromo, look at the Gada system. What is Gada system? Anthropologists كلام اللي صار هو مصر حتى تمزحاتي من southern nationality. And look how empowering it is. Look at the so many studies in the Nilotic and the Cushitic. It's extremely empowering to self-knowledge. So let's see, we need to go back and look into our social values and use them for political or social or economic agenda. Khali, I think shortcut to knowledge a lot. Fly hazeft social media garagatun تلقون غرافي. ولا social cultural one now. حلف سول خاي you have like أفتي موسيقى تاتون تري هو the quality وده political part تاتري هو ideology. Why do we exist كده ملا تري it's shortcut مزحتي. So let's see education تعوي مسارتها نجاري مانجي. Of course, are we together? We need to look at that. Some society, some culture, some history. What makes our هذا الجورنا نجار style elements of culture knowledge. It's important that we have a collective identification. Collectively identifying them. نجارات اليوم the past 40-50 years تفتروا hierarchy at a low or stratification at a low in this class, in this I don't know position, political galamala. These are also very important. I think summarize I think culture is not what we simply say or what we simply talk about. There is a function of culture, and then its function is survival. And political survival or existing as a political community, hantiya. So culturally identified with Barallah. Any political system or a political situation is part of culture. Highlight the social aspect. The networks, the social aspect now, the structure, process it has to go from generation to the next generation. Disruption, avoid the government system at colonial law. Highlight the agents of change, people and leaders, belongingness, and frames categories and alignment the process of identification. It goes into the perception of human beings, cognitive view. So it's in the mind. That's existence management. Of course, the management aspect of social movements, that's where you talk about political science, political agendas. It's about the management of these issues. When the AM, and I think these are just summaries. It's just to give you an idea how anthropologists study political movements that are not just present, but we go back into the past and we look into the lived experience of people and then how they organize themselves. Continuity and disruption, change and stagnation. leave you. I hope it makes sense to you guys. But we can talk. Sorry if I'm more or less behind you. With الله.
يا غني لامتكو لسه البرزنتيشن يرو خد سلسلة تياجك قبل مو أنا تياجك تيغيا لحرا نامتكو برفليكت خدابر عندكم وينا تياجي لكم تعليقهم أوزي حزقري ونيو برزنتيشن تقول social change social movements لملكات مسنا تجري ونتحيز مستقرين identity ونتحيزو مستزلنا يا خناتاتو ونتحيزو تقول social movement إحنا مستنحاسو عينة لوطي مس حارنتن مس ناسنتن with independence and liberty ونتحيزو تياكي لكم please feel free كتحطوه لحارة أنا ونكبري ملقيتها is quiet